Yeah.
Are you ready for the Super Bowl?
I am. I mean, it's tough when your team isn't in it,
Mm.
but
Who's your team?
it's okay. The Patriots.
That's fair.
No one likes that answer.
It's a New England answer. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
wrong answer, but it's the New England answer.
Okay. All right.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Gamers Gab, the podcast by gamers for gamers. I'm Artsy from the Artsy Gamer. I make art, I play games, and I encourage others to do the same. And joining me for today's episode is Pat from Nintendo Talk, a returning co-host for Gamers Gab. I think it's been like about a dozen episodes since your debut. And today's episode, we will be talking about designing Animal Crossing community games in Animal Crossing. So, Pat, before we get started with today's conversation, if you would, give us a brief introduction of who you are and what you do, and your pronouns, please, and thank you.
Yes, my name is Patrick from Nintendo Talk. He, him pronouns, and yeah, I mostly create Animal Crossing. You probably know me from Animal Crossing content, but I've been making videos and stuff since 2017 here on YouTube, and still going. And Artsy's not sick of me because I made it back here. So
I can never be sick of you, dude. It's I have to say that I will tell people this, that you are one of the, I think, the top 3 content creators that really inspired me to start making content. And you were the first content creator that I ever became a member of the channel for, that I actively started watching. And I don't want to raise your ego too much, but you were truly, you were a lifeline during a really hard time in my life. And so I'm very grateful for you. Yeah. Anyway, back to bullying you properly. So, y'all, we all know that Animal Crossing New Horizons, the multiplayer mechanic is not the best in comparison to the older games. And what I find really amazing about this community is that since the very beginning, we've been able to create multiplayer initiatives that encourage a wide audience to participate. And so we have Sam from Crunchy Island, who created Dream Address mazes, and mazes that, you race to get a villager with various content creators. You have EJ Plays with Last Crosser Standing, Truung's Lost Race, Dongela from Dongela Amiibo. So we know that Animal Crossing initiatives and games are not new. But within the last year, Pat from Nintendo Talk has created or popularized 3 initiatives that have kept the game going. We can talk about the Dream Address Scavenger Hunts, we can talk about Sabotage League, and most recently, we can talk about Animal Crossing Hardmode. So, Pat, I'm trying to remember whether or not if it was during our first episode with Zach from Switchforce, where you had stated that content creators fall into 2 camps. 1, they focus on the content, or 2, they focus on the community. And that conversation, you were pretty adamant about stating that you were content first, community second. And I don't want to say, y'all, that Pat doesn't love his community, because it's very clear that he loves the hooligans, he loves the Animal Crossing community, gaming community, and the like, but all of your initiatives have kind of moved and gravitated towards community building. So was that a purposeful decision?
Was that switched? I feel like Zach was content heavy,
Was it? I thought it was you. I thought it was you.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've stayed consistent with getting like a group within a group. You know, last time we were talking about like channels getting bigger and you lose kind of that intimacy there. But yeah, I mean, I feel like my content has always been driven to like help people or like get people to feel better about, themselves. Like when I first started blowing up with Animal Crossing, I was doing design videos, and my popular videos were named like cute design ideas for your island. That's literally the name. So like I've always been, sort of empowering people. And now looking back on it, that kind of, I mean, I don't want to say I did it because I was probably in a group of like 10 or 15 people, but that kind of like molded the design community really. Like people were just playing it for the cute animals at first, and then it was like the pattern searching and things like that. But Yeah, I've stayed consistent. I feel like with fostering a community and getting people on the same page with that.
Well, we can also move on to the gravitation from the Dream Address Scavenger Hunts, where it was you were inviting people to do the same thing that you were doing at the exact same time, towards Sabotage League, where you were inviting content creators and their communities to participate, and now Animal Crossing Hardmode, where you are inviting the entire community to interact with not only their favorite content creators and with you, but with each other. I feel like this progression is perhaps a little bit more, at least it was obvious to me, because we are very nervous about the Animal Crossing community and content falling out of favor. And so has that been a consistent source of anxiety for you, that you are trying to find ways to keep this game from effectively dying, content-wise?
Yeah, I mean, it is like, the fact that my channel's built around pretty much a single game is very scary, and it's not good to do. But like, YouTube also loves that, though. YouTube doesn't like, me to do a shopping haul one day and then Animal Crossing and then Zelda. Like, they want you to do one thing. So when people have questions, you'll pop up or whatever. It has been to sort of save the crowd, because, a lot of people want to call Animal Crossing dead, but at the same time, when hard mode was first popping off, like, everyone came back, and there's still a community there, but you just have to get them involved for them to be interested.
Well, what I find so interesting, and from Lex Play's conversation about the multiple platform usage, is that I'm still seeing people on Reddit who have never played the game before and are asking like 20 questions, and I keep on like having to keep myself quiet, being like, have you gone onto YouTube and checked out all of these videos that are years old that you can check out to answer these questions? But I can't. And so I know that YouTube has a specific niche with the community that has revolved around it. So what are the considerations that you put into designing your specific Animal Crossing gaming niche? I
feel like all of those three things have an equal part of like creator involvement and viewer involvement. Because if you look at the scavenger hunts, the entire chat is pointing out, okay, there's an item, there's an item. It's basically like I Spy with everyone. So there's like two different things there. And then Sabotage League, the main thing is sabotaging the other player, but who does that? The chat does. The chat goes over to the other thing. And then hard mode was supposed to be like my sort of island theme, but I wanted to bring in that like Sunday market element. Whenever I'm designing something or thinking of something, it's always like equal parts. What can the creator get out of it, but also the audience? Because like something that I don't do, and I don't have anything against it, but like a speed build, for example, if I put out a speed build video or stream or something, there's not a ton for the audience to do except watch, So it's like equal parts interacting and entertainment, I think. So.
Is that a personality thing? Because I've made this realization about myself that I really can't do speed builds the same way that like Fleurs or Console Kato can. And so I do think that you have always had a flair for not only community and multiplayer in Animal Crossing, but a little bit of the chaos and bullying both to the other content creator and from your community.
Yeah. It's part of that. I mean, I like people just being involved and invested. I kind of feel weird if I'm just doing my thing and people are watching me, where it's like, if I can get people involved in some way, like even when I'm doing the most basic of things, like a new campsite villager moves in. I go up to the tent and I'm like, okay, guys, I'm just going to look at you. Give me hints. I don't want to know the name. And it's like, if I can just continue to, inject like interactivity, like I think that's what makes streams fun. That's the difference between a stream and a video. It's like a stream, like you can get direct feedback. So I think that's super important.
Of the 3 initiatives that you have created within the last year, what are the reflections that you've had with each initiative that have kind of made you think of like the next one?
So I think the scavenger hunts were probably first. I thought it was really fun. It's more of like a single player thing for me. And we have tried different multiplayer elements. BWICK and I were trying to create like, okay, what if 2 streamers were doing a scavenger hunt? So that one kind of felt like there was interactivity there, but it was more like a solo thing. Sabotage League, that was my personal, like me and BWICK, that was our personal, thing to like reach out to more content creators. I don't do a ton of collabs and stuff. Like I love doing this and stuff, but it was more for like me to meet other people and things. And then hard mode was like the first community widespread idea. Like, could this spread? And it did, but it was risky too, because the whole thing is based on other people playing. So if no one did it, that would have been such a big flop.
What about collaborations is, because it sounds like it's not nerve-wracking for you, but it's not something that I don't want to say that you're uncomfortable with, but it's definitely something that you don't do very often. So has Sabotage League, and specifically Animal Crossing Hard Mode, kind of branched out your love of collaborating in different ways? Yeah,
it definitely has. Like early on, I didn't really do any collaborations. I had a pretty long-standing podcast with Bobby, the Nintendo Guru. I had a podcast with Zach. I had a podcast with BWICK, and nothing else. I like collaborating. I'm always careful though. Like sometimes people aren't in it for the right reasons. It should never be about growth. It should be about like, how can I bounce off of this person and stuff like that. But I've definitely warmed up to it, and it's kind of cool seeing like we're approaching season 4 of Sabotage League, and some of the people that have done hard mode are now in the newest season. So it's cool. I mean, that's really cool. So are we getting the inside scoop that you've already reached out to everybody? Is it all done? There may or may not be 16 people in a Discord somewhere.
That's incredible. I'm so excited. I think what I've loved most about the collaborations, and I think due to your continuous growth, that you basically raise a lot of people up and have allowed people to meet people like Peyton from Peyton's Corner, May from May Plays, and a lot of people who are on the smaller side like myself or Becca with a book have really started becoming part of the community in a more vibrant and whole way. And I think that's something that I've really appreciated about seeing how you've gone from Ready Player 1 to Ready Player 16 to just inviting everybody, to whoever wants to do it, so as long as they follow the rules. What are the considerations that you have for designing games like this
in terms of like getting everyone involved? Or?
Yeah.
I mean, considerations like with hard mode, it was the big thing about like Animal Crossing and things catching on is like 9 times out of 10, there are great patterns. Like, let's just use patterns, for example. There's amazing patterns, but like that one pattern that has like a beautiful graphic and stuff, that's the one that normally catches on. And like, it doesn't even have to be the best either. So like hard mode, I wanted to have like a 1-page graphic. I wanted to have like funky, weird rules, like name generator for your island. And it's just like approachable. But with hard mode, I was afraid that people weren't going to want to do it, because when you first see the wall of rules, you're like, oh my God, like, what is this guy thinking? But it's not too bad when you learn it. So it's more so like how easy it is, like how approachable it is. Like Sabotage League has a lot of rules, but it's pretty easy when you play it. And like the scavenger hunt, like the graphics on the screen. So as long as it's approachable, I think that's the biggest thing.
I think what makes Animal Crossing New Horizons so frustrating and also so wonderful is because of the limitations that we've had with the game and the things that have been removed. So for reference, friends, Animal Crossing New Horizons is the first Animal Crossing game. I have dipped my toes into the GameCube game because of Kay from Kay Daisy. But I do think that we are really good at working with the limitations that we've had. And I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on, if Animal Crossing New Horizons had the multiplayer capabilities, like, I don't know, I'm pulling this out of my tush, y'all, but like New Leaf, and I guess Tortimer had an island for multiplayer games and things. Do you think that these initiatives would have been as popular if there were already multiplayer games within Animal Crossing New Horizons?
I mean, it's tough to kind of like think about that, but I think this community is just so ready to take on the challenge. Like, I love that we have 2.0 and we have a ton of new items from that, But if you go back, I remember the days when people were making like pumpkin patches with hats and things. And like it was so inventive, like what people were doing. New Horizons multiplayer is awful. It's really bad. And honestly, hot take maybe, I don't know. But the multiplayer that's always existed in Animal Crossing has been pretty poor. I mean, it's mini games, you know. And you look at a game like Dinkum, for example, you could just straight up go to someone's island and walk around and even terraform with them. And but I think for sure, I think a lot of these creations, not even mine either, like Crunchy and stuff, they would not exist if it wasn't for how bad this was. It's so bad.
So, well, let's talk about Dinkum for a minute. Dinkum was, I think it came out last year, and everyone was like, is this a ripoff of Animal Crossing, but with like humans and in Australia? And it turns out that it is a really delightful game. I think that I go to Dinkum specifically for the multiplayer aspect, but I don't know how I would feel about somebody being able to terraform my island. I'm very protective of my island. Do you think that that level of multiplayer autonomy on somebody else's specific save would be popular?
Dinkum lets you do a lot of stuff. You can literally go to someone's island, steal all their stuff. You can like go in their house and take all their furniture. I feel like there has to be a happy medium, whereas like, you know, something like New Horizons where you make someone your best friend and then they can like use shovels and stuff. Something like that. But I even think New Horizons does a bad job with that because you have to become their friend and then ask for it. But I want more stuff like that. Like I feel like if you give someone a dodo code, that's a lot of trust. So you should have a lot of freedom.
What sort of freedoms do you think that you would like to see for that then?
Artsy, if I could terraform on someone's island, I would have a whole design series built around that. Waterscaping, placing items. I mean, just from a mini game perspective, that excites me. But like, if I could go to someone's island and just redo a little area, that would be so great.
That would be really cool. I would love to see content creators doing like the Pat corner, the BWICK corner, the K-Daisy corner. That would be really cute. But I could also imagine a bit of trolling where some of us may devolve into being 12 and make, you know, questionable shapes in lakes because we've done that by accident live. And I could imagine us doing that purposefully on somebody else's island.
I can see that.
Oh my god, that would be hilarious. So okay, let's do a bit of an exercise. And I know that we often like to think about the next Animal Crossing game, but with Animal Crossing New Horizons, if you could have terraformed on other people's islands, how would that have changed your game designs at the community level?
I mean, like I was saying, I probably would do like a design thing where it's like fix my island and then I go over there. In terms of mini games, I mean, you could create a whole terraformed area and the first person who gets through like wins. Like there's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, like so like Dreams, for example, if you go to someone's island, you can't craft, you can't do a ton of stuff. And you know, the more options we have, the better going forward. I don't know what the next Animal Crossing is going to be like, whether it's going to be a bigger world or, you know, more of the same, but yeah, the more the better. Let us do more.
What games do you think, aside from Dinkum, that the multiplayer aspect could be utilized for creating in game experiences that you would suggest to your community?
Dinkum's a big one that's not even been touched yet. Minecraft, the Minecraft community is very creative too. They do a lot of mini game stuff. There's a lot of like the GTA community. I know it's not a lot of people's favorite games, but
wait, what? GTA for like multiplayer? Wait, what?
Yeah, so there is and I'm like I don't participate in this, but there is a giant GTA roleplay community that I did not know of. People like role play as cops and they take it seriously. They role play as just anything. And there's a bunch of people in this world and like literally you could get pulled over by just a player for speeding or something. It's kind of dope. Like, I'm not going to lie. But I never would have thought GTA as something, but I mean, there's a lot of games that have challenges and even something like Zelda, I've seen challenges, like Pokemon Nuzlocke, Zelda, the 3 heart challenge. There's a lot of different ones.
Are there challenges that you do outside of Animal Crossing that you enjoy?
I have done forms of Nuzlocke. I was trying to think of this exactly, like when I started doing this, and I can root it back to when I first started playing Pokemon. I would play the games like so much that I kind of got bored of it. And the first instance of me altering a game the way that you're supposed to be playing is I would get rid of my starting Pokemon. And that was my first challenge. I'd be like, no, I don't want Charmander. I want to start with like Pidgey or something. And like I would go through the whole thing. And a lot of people do that, like Nuzlocks and things. But mostly Pokemon, honestly.
All right.
Yeah.
I made this joke with Becca with a Book during their interview that I had this mental image of you thinking up multiplayer community building games where you were sitting in your bathtub with a mimosa or a Jack Daniels with Coke, and you had like a face mask and cucumbers in your eyes, and you're like, how can I make people hate Animal Crossing even more? So what rules within Animal Crossing hard mode were you surprised did not make the cut?
A lot of people were pushing for design rules. So it's like like the no terraforming thing, people were kind of pushing for that. You can only use like a certain amount of bridges or inclines. And I steered away from that just because I wanted people to, like, the whole point is, can we create good islands or amazing islands with these restrictions? Like, I want to be able to tour someone's hard mode island and not know at all that they were hindered in any way. So I kind of axed the design ones. Yeah.
I do know that a lot of people feel very they lack the confidence when it comes to design, especially with we have so many content creators who are incredible designers for various reasons. And I think what I loved about hard mode, and really any hardcore challenge within Animal Crossing, is that it kind of levels the playing field, and it allows people to take their time, and they do see that, yes, content creators are not gods within, the computer screen, and we also have a hard time with with designing it. So Animal Crossing hard mode, of the 3 initiatives that you created and popularized, I think this is the first time that we see you as an Animal Crossing player as opposed to a content creator. So hard mode has been going on for, I think, over a month at this point. What are your reflections from hard mode so far?
My reflection so far is there was a lot of things that I wasn't anticipating. One of them being how other people were benefiting from it, so a lot of people were looking up how to make patterns and stuff. And there's a lot of videos, how to make pixel art and everything. So those people were getting a lot of views and a lot of attention, which is great. The whole letting your villagers go, there's been a few that I've been like, I kind of like that villager now. And I know same with you, but I can't understand this.
Patrick, Nintendo Talk McNamara, you made Hippo likable, and I will never forgive you for that. I am so upset. No, but it's really funny because we can also talk about how we tend to, I don't know if you know the psychological term of love bombing. Do you know what that means? So usually in an abusive relationship, there's this tendency for people to just like throw love at another person, so it kind of balances out them being awful. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I really loved gifting my villagers every single day, which meant that my friendship with them is one based on the fact that I had all of the money, all of the economic power. Basically, I'm a god on this island, and I can control whether or not they leave. And so the whole, you can only gift one person a day. You can't move their house unless you've become a friend, and therefore, their acquaintanceship means that they trust you. And I think hard mode has had us confront a lot of how we treat relationships that have no real life consequences. So has that been something that you've been thinking about with regards to just like, I'm an overthinker, y'all. So you know that this is what I think about regularly, but I'm really curious how how Animal Crossing has changed for you as a game, because now that there's a relationship factor that's more realistic and also something you have no control over.
Yeah, it's been different. I mean, I did purposefully look at some things that a lot of people do and kind of like the opposite of that. Like usually if your favorite villager comes up to you with a thought bubble, you're like, no, I'm walking away. But like that was a crucial rule that we had to do. You know, also the villager hunting rules where you can still villager hunt with the 10, you can do 10 tickets. You can still time travel, which you probably won't see in a different hard mode or something.
I can't do it with hard mode. I can't with the dailies.
Those two things were, I had creators in mind when I put those in, because like if someone's going to stream, they want to be able to go to the next day or like build a bridge or something. So yeah, those were a couple of the things I was thinking of.
So has it changed the way that you've played? Like, because I've noticed that with my other island, I've been ignoring it, but I have noticed that the way that I treat my villagers has been different. Has hard mode changed the way that you've thought about Animal Crossing, like permanently?
Yeah, there's a few instances, because like Katrina is a daily requirement. You have to go to Katrina and get her fortune or whatever. And I'm learning all of the benefits that she gives you. And like, I should have been doing this. I mean, I knew of them, but I didn't know exactly what they did. And I should have been doing this like from the start. But yeah, interacting with different villagers, there's a lot of strategy to it too. Like, who do you want to kick off? You know, making a theme is really hard too, because like normally when I think of a theme, I'm like, okay, these are the 10 villagers I want. But now you can't do that because you never know who's going to leave. So it's made me enjoy the game more because I'm thinking less, I feel. You know?
That's fair.
I'm just kind of, yeah.
That's fair. Like, no thoughts, island empty. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I think what I really appreciated about hard mode is I never did or touched a custom code outside of maybe designing clothing. And on my island, I've designed wooden borders for the pier. I'm actually using the wood in-game pathing for the first time. I'm doing things that are so different. So with hard mode specifically, how have you felt? Because I remember seeing a member's live stream about you doing a path yourself. How did you feel about that?
That was so tough. It was crazy. Like the first hour of that stream is me just failing epically. Like it was so bad. But man, it put into perspective, like a lot of my early videos were showcasing paths, and I'm super crucial on path. Like people know me. I don't put a path down unless I'm in love with it. And it kind of made me think like, I'm not going to stop being picky, but like, damn, like this takes a lot of talent. And there's multiple factors that go into a path. You can't just use one color. You got to use multiple. You got to shade.
Yeah.
It's made me appreciate it a lot more.
I did really appreciate your path. I know that every time that I work on one, everyone's like, Artsy, you're being very critical that you don't have to be. I'm like, no, it's that I think what I've realized from the custom codes, especially with Kuridoon's Gamers Gab episode, is that we really take custom codes for granted. And I don't mean that in a mean way, because I'm of two minds when it comes to custom codes. One, they are assets that people freely provide, and it's really hard for us to trace back and credit people properly because one, they're either in Japanese, or two, they don't have a social media platform. And so it made me realize that I think a lot of people are starting to recognize this dual experience, that what it means to be a custom code artist. So I want to hear your thoughts about this. And what do you hope for the next game when it comes to designing custom codes? Because my thing right off the bat is, if you are going to download somebody, I don't think it's very hard for Nintendo to add made by blah, blah, blah in your own your own custom code field, because that information shouldn't be lost, especially since we can't edit them.
Yeah. And I think this is where the big divide happens, because I've been ridiculed and like called out for like not crediting, but the Nintendo way of crediting is someone's creator code, their picture, their name, their creator code, the pattern code, and that's it. That's where it stops. And you could even go a step further. If you advertise your anything on your island, like it's banned. Like they take it down. So I was always going about it, putting someone's creator code I was relating it to Nintendo. This is enough credit for that. And, going online and searching patterns, like you said, if they're in Japanese or, sometimes I'm finding them on Reddit and I'll find an amazing code and all I see is Mark. Like, what do I do with that? Like, do I like go on a giant search? And I feel like a lot of people do want that extra effort to be put in. And listen, I'm down to do it if I see the information. But those videos would have taken me weeks to make. If I had to, hunt down people's Twitters and Instagrams and stuff. And I'm interested your take on this, because obviously it's a Nintendo problem, I feel.
Yeah, it is a Nintendo problem, I agree.
Yeah.
So, well, it's really funny that you have mentioned crediting, because I know that a lot of us, you included, do take crediting very seriously. And for me, I'm actually really surprised that I have not been like ridiculed for the fact that I'm just like, if you are curious about this custom code, I will do my best to like search it. But we need to recognize that not every single custom code artist has a social media platform. We can't credit them equally. So I do think, and I hope Nintendo, I know that I'm a teeny tiny baby streamer, but I do hope that Nintendo at least goes that extra mile of like, if we are able to favorite custom code artists, we can link back to them easily by just pressing the information that we already have downloaded. It's already in our code, so to speak. So I don't understand why that would be a problem. But actually, that's a really interesting segue. So when it comes to Animal Crossing initiatives, right? I would say that hard mode hardcore isn't a new concept. Mazes are not a new concept. I think one of the more interesting things are like Dongela Amiibo, the board game, or EJ from EJ Plays, where he was inspired by the show. Survivor. Thank you, Survivor. I totally watch trash TV. Okay, actually, no, the only trash TV I watch is EJ. But I do think that I would love to hear how you put your own creative spin on things that are not original. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but the reason why these initiatives are so popular is because we've had them before for years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Sabotage League, 100%. Well, the last season, 100% inspired by Crunchy. And honestly, I could trace everything back to Crunchy Island because I feel like he was so huge creating, community events and like almost sporting events. I remember when they were first coming out, I didn't want to watch anything else, but a lot of it came from Crunchy. The hard mode thing, I gotta say, I kind of like wanted to limit myself in terms of economy and stuff. I wasn't aware that there were other things going on. I know that people do like no terraforming and like people play different modes where if a villager asks to leave, they have to do it. But when hard mode started getting popular, then I was getting messages like, hey, Pat, this came out 2 years ago in October, like what's this about? And I'm, and it's tough because like people want you to credit that source, but if that wasn't a source that you even knew about, like I don't know what to do in that situation. Like it feels it doesn't feel genuine to me to credit something that
you didn't get inspiration from.
Yeah. Or didn't even know about,
Yeah, it's I know that you were under a bit of Twitter controversy, and I don't want to provide an unequal representation of, he said, she said, but I do think what I found really important from that conversation is, one, Nintendo is primarily the problem when it comes to custom codes, and the fact that we can't at all reference people properly, even if they don't have the social media platform, or even worse, I mean, even though Nintendo is a Japanese company, it does prioritize, Latin lettering when it comes to finding codes properly. Either that, or I'll have to find someone in Japan who somehow speaks better English than I speak Japanese, which is none of it, that I would be curious how different the community is from different languages. That would actually be really cool. But with regards to such initiatives that are effectively, and I don't mean this meanly, but copy pastes of each other, I think what's really hard is the controversy also came out during the time with Wizards of the Coast. Do you know what Wizards of the Coast is?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, so it's a company, or it's an organization that basically runs D&D, right? And so recently, D&D, or Wizards of the Coast, was put under a lot of controversy for trying to copyright the rule sets for D&D, which lawfully you cannot do. That's kind of one of the main reasons as to why, a lot of the games that we love have similar rule sets, because they are inspired by each other, and it's really hard to it's really hard to track back who did what. If you are not copying logos, you technically are fine. But that is really interesting, because I'm curious if I think Animal Crossing New Horizons is really incredible because we bounce ideas back off of each other so often, and it's really hard to credit people properly. And so I'm really curious in addition to the fact that, as I said, I'm of two minds with custom codes. One, artists who create custom codes are incredibly undervalued and underappreciated. But two, when you post a custom code, you are giving permission for people to use it as an asset for your island. Because as an artist, I don't credit the paintbrushes that I utilize for my comicking. I buy it, and then if people ask me where I got it, I may remember. But I think it's the whole of the island. Now, I would say that if you were inspired by a specific content creator, like when I designed a robot museum build that was directly off of EJ, of course, I'm going to credit EJ for that. But I think that's really difficult because, as you said, there are so many hardcore hard mode challenges that can feed off of each other, and it's really hard to garner where you got that inspiration from. How can we design initiatives that still are inspired off of each other, but with the understanding and expectation that at some point, crediting is going to be lost because we don't know where it came from. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
And I mean, it's tough. Like with patterns, you could trace things back. Like it would have been different if I was like, okay, guys, here's 5 patterns I made, and then just put them on the ground, and they were clearly other people's. But something like a hard mode, or like there's a lot of gray area there, because if hard mode needs to be credited, well, then island tours do too, and then like villager hunts do too. Who was the first person to do a villager hunt? So
I have no idea.
In terms
actually,
that would be interesting. That would be so great. But like, and it's weird too. Maybe it's just this community, because like Pokemon, I've never in my life heard any sort of thing about crediting Nuzlocke. Nuzlocke are like the most common thing, and I'm sure one person made it super popular, but I couldn't even tell you a name with that. I don't know who created that. So with game modes, I don't know. I don't really know what initiative they can do, but Nintendo needs to make a really easy fix. Would be creator codes for patterns. If I can search if I can like click on them and like see all their patterns, and maybe link to something. But I don't think Nintendo cares about your Twitter or Instagram. Like, they're never going to do any sort of promotion. But there needs to be something. There needs to be like maybe an incentive program, like every download you get something, like kind of like Fortnite, where you have your creator code, and if someone buys something with your creator code, then you get something. But
that's cool.
Yeah, these artists need to be rewarded in some way. I just don't know how. I just don't know. I mean, Nintendo doesn't have anything either. So
I have a question. Let's kind of deep dive into game creating, because I know that you have been very adamant about like crediting people that you do recognize you got a lot of inspiration from. And I will say that I remember being really nervous when you had popularized scavenger hunts and dream addresses, because I didn't want to be the person that's like, oh, I'm totally doing this, even though Pat does this regularly, especially when that was your thing for a while. But most recently, I have evolved these scavenger hunts where it's a super secret scavenger hunt where I am the only person that knows what I'm looking for, and I'm touring people's dream addresses at the same time. So it's like, it's a buildup of what you did, but it's different now. And so I'm really curious to hear how you would feel about a hard mode that was absolutely inspired off of what you created, but it's different. You know, like I find, especially with custom codes, I find myself, as I said, sitting with these two minds where I'm like, wow, I made this thing and it was hard and it took me hours, but also it's an asset that I can't expect proper credit for eventually. Like, it's going to become lost in the internet. So when it comes to designing games, is the beauty of Animal Crossing New Horizons the fact that eventually we forget how it all got started, and then it just becomes part of the zeitgeist of our community where it's always been that way. Yeah.
I mean, I'm someone who, like, if you put on a backwards hat and say you're Nintendo Talk and start, like, I don't care. Like, I just don't need that. And I think it's kind of like, we're kind of losing sight why all of these are created in the first place. Like, you know, this was a community initiative to get people back in the game. And it benefited so many creators, so many artists. People were coming back, and, you know, I'll be the one who say it. People's views were up, people's live stream numbers were up, and, like, why can't we just ride into the sunset with that? Why is it always like, let's talk more about this and just make it not fun, you know? So and crediting is super important, but with game modes and stuff, I mean, there's new ways to play Animal Crossing every day. People have come up with the tiny house challenge and
I love those.
What is it? The 9 square, I don't even know.
I think it's 10 by 10. It's either 9 and 10 by 10, yeah, with the builds.
Yeah, something like that. You know, the 10 ticket challenge. This community has created so many challenges and so many people have done them. And I feel like there's a lot of inconsistencies with who's put on trial for, you know, the whole credit thing. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's like, why aren't certain things being looked at, or only popular things being looked at? I don't know.
I think it's because, as I said, I know that a lot of artists in general are very undervalued with what we create. So I usually do the example that if you read comics online, for example, even if it's a webtoon that is a scroll, you're looking at literal hours of work. And if we apply that to capitalist worth, what you're reading that takes about 10 seconds to consume is about a couple $100. So it's very difficult, I think, for artists to already have that value. And when you create something that you're really proud of and you see that someone else did something similar and it was popularized, I think that hurts. And I think that is more about how we can then design better community-wide efforts. But I think it's because we don't have the same, and I don't mean values as in some people are awful people. It's mostly that we have certain expectations and desires for how we build things and how it's credited. And I don't have the answer for that. Like, I may be the artsy gamer, but my views about what custom codes are to me are very different than other people, and both answers can be true. So with regards to designing things in the future, I know that kind of everyone's sitting and waiting for the next big game, but is there anything past Sabotage League Season 4 and hard mode for you?
There always is. I feel like I can't just, like, play a game normally and just, you know, whatever.
who plays Animal Crossing normally anymore?
But I did have an idea of launching a community-wide challenge again in the summer. It would be completely new. It would be it's involved, but it's just like there's an objective to it. But I mean, I'll be completely honest. I mean, as soon as hard mode started taking off, I started thinking, like, okay, what can we do next? And then the whole thing happened, you know, the whole controversy happened, and it kind of soured the taste of making something else. Like, you know, it kind of demotivates you in a way, because you just start thinking of things you shouldn't. When you're creating something, it's like, wait, should I research this and see if anyone's done it? Because I just don't want to trace it back to anything. So there is something planned for the summer. Will it happen? I'm not sure, but it's pretty far along.
That's really cool. One thing that my husband, who has never played Animal Crossing other than like villager hunting while I'm cooking, and he's like, I don't know who this villager is. They're pink, whatever. But he did have this really cool idea, and anyone can take this and benefit off of it. But he was like, what if you made the smallest island build possible? Like, if you could like condense everything possible into one part of your island, and that's all you can do, what would that look like? And I was like, that's incredible. So I think what is so beautiful about the limitations and also the allowances for Animal Crossing is that the sky's the limit with regards to what we can create. And I think that unfortunately we live in a capitalist society where a lot of the people who do the back-breaking work of making things amazing kind of fall in the cracks with regards to being credited properly. And I don't have the answer for that, y'all. I really wish I do. So if you have anything in the comments of how, we as a community can start creating something like a standard of not only crediting people, but maybe just allowing things to be like, this is how it is, I would love to hear it. But again, I don't have the answers for that. So
I think the artists that are doing pixel art and creating these like massive codes, this might be, not everyone will probably agree with this, but I wouldn't mind seeing, I mean, we know the big artists in the AC space. I wouldn't mind them starting Patreons and stuff. Like, people would happily pay for like the most amazing paths and things like that. And they're releasing them for free. I mean, I made a giant 20-piece path and it took me like 4 hours. And I'm sure I was kind of speeding through that. But I'm willing to bet that like people would love to support artists who make themselves feel better, like with their codes and everything. Or even someone who's just going to like put a paywall behind like how to make codes. I feel like there needs to be something.
Yeah, I agree. I think the how to make codes would be a lot easier because when I had a Patreon, I think a lot of people like seeing the in process stuff. And so I during one of my live streams where I was working on my custom codes, I think it was EJ who asked me to change the pattern color so it was like really wacky and wonky so people could actually trace the specific pixels in order for them to do it themselves. And so it looked LSD as hell. Like, it looked like my custom code was on drugs. But I will say that I think that has a lot of benefit where I would love to see more of April Honey's work. They are also a custom code artist that has been really helpful and been popping off. Kuri I would love to see Alex of Fodlin and Colin Crossing and how they do it, because honestly, it is sorcery how they create stuff like that. It's wild. And also with the same thing with designing initiatives, because I think initiatives fall into that the crossroads of it was the perfect time and it had the perfect amount of community engagement. And so I guess from your experience, do you think that the three things that you created came during the times that, the world needed it most before the Fire Nation attacked?
Now I want to watch Avatar. Hard mode, I think hard mode was the only one I think that had really good timing to it. The scavenger hunts, I did them to a point where people just like, they liked seeing it. So it became a bigger thing. And, it on it, like, the scavenger hunts for me were like a way that I could tour people's islands, but also look for things. So that was kind of, like I said, I can't just do something normally. I gotta like add some mini game to it or something. But yeah, the only one that had timing was hard mode. Like I said, new year, new island. We're year 3, if you can believe it, and people are just always trying to come up with new ways. So that was the perfect timing for that, for sure.
How long do you think Sabotage League will go for? And how big is it going to get?
See that? I don't know. I mean, BWICK and I'm so glad BWICK is on board because I did the first season, I think alone, and then like he jumped on board. I'm so grateful for his friendship, by the way. Like I would like to just keep it going just so that we have something
to do together. Yeah. You two are so great together.
I would love it to keep going. As long as there's creators that are interested, we're going to keep doing it. This season, we had like 55 people sign up, which is a new high. Last season was like 40 something and 30 something the year, so it's becoming more popular. I feel like a lot of people like Sabotage League, and I think the success of it is because Sam, Crunchy Island isn't doing his events anymore. So there's like a gap there. I would like to keep going at least till 10. We got to do double digits seasons.
Season 10 would be a good one because then you can do the merch that has like the X, like Sabotage League X. That would be, oh my gosh, Sabotage League Extreme.
I'll write that down.
You are take it. I throw it at you willingly. It's amazing. So you were talking about how it started off with you being alone, right? Like you thought you popularized Dream Address Scavenger Hunts, and then Sabotage League, you started off without Blaine. And then, with Hardmode, you designed this challenge with other people taking inspiration from other places. So what are the benefits from working with Blaine with Sabotage League, and in comparison to how you designed this challenge with, hundreds of people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the mindset where like more opinions are always better. Like last season, BWICK came up with the Sabotage Island thing. Like that was all him. He came up with, some of the different sabotages. So it's nice to have ideas to bounce off of. But then again, like, hard mode, there was no surprise there. Like we were all coming up with the rules, whereas like Sabotage League is very tight knit. Like it's literally only BWICK and I know. And part of the excitement is the surprise. Like season 4 is about to debut. There's a new gimmick there. So I like the more people, the better. The more people, the better.
That's awesome. So I guess with BWICK, I would say that when you design Sabotage League, it's kind of like you're sipping your drinks and you're doing this with your little insect hand.
Literally.
Yeah. And you're like, I cannot wait for people to hate us and also love this at the exact same time. But with hard mode, it sounds like you kind of just fall into the mass of people where it's no longer just about you, it's about everybody. Is losing a lot of that agency with designing hard mode. How do you feel about that?
I liked it in that sense. I feel like I'm very like controlling when it comes to like like certain things. Like I want my input in there, but this was a community wide thing. So some of the ideas like selling, I mean, most of the ideas were created from everyone else, but like selling bugs only to flick, things like that, where it's like, I never would have thought of that. And if they think it's fun, then yeah. I mean, the original hard mode was supposed to be no time traveling. And I was like, okay, let's put no time traveling. And then everyone in the chat was like, hell no. And I was like, okay, we'll limit it, but still have it.
What considerations would you suggest to people with designing community-wide initiatives in Animal Crossing specifically? Like, what would you encourage them to think about first before even starting?
Yeah, so like ways to make it successful, because I've seen a lot of things pop up and like lose steam fairly quickly. The best way, and I could literally credit this to hard mode, was every creator who got involved, because it's like I can only do so much. I have like my people that I stream to, but like if Kato does it, if EJ does it, if BWICK does it, like, so almost like shoot your ideas over to your creator friends and be like, hey, do you want in on this? Can you spread this? Because I feel like it was the FOMO effect where it's like, well, everyone else is doing it, let's just try it. And so getting more people involved, mostly creators, like shoot your ideas to them. But again, make it approachable. Don't be afraid to advertise it and hype it up.
That's incredible. So, Pat, first and foremost, thank you so much for coming back onto Gamers Gab. I've been looking forward to having you on for a year, and I'm glad that we were able to find a topic that you were very passionate about with sharing. We're going to finish off with the final question, perhaps the most important question of Gamers Gab, is who would you like to see on here, and what would the topic be?
I have 3 now that I'm thinking about it. First one, BWICK.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you would talk about, but you know what? He did start on Twitch, and he made the decision to come over to YouTube. And I do know some reasons why he did that, but I think it'd be nice to get his perspective on like the difference in just everything, communities, making thumbnails, the way that he thinks about things. Would love to have Sam on here from Crunchy Island.
Sam's on my list. I have to have him on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I just don't even know where he got the idea to do that. And he was a very small channel at one point, and getting people like Abdallah, who had like 900,000 subscribers, like what that felt like, getting huge creators and on there. And then Timmy versus Tommy. I don't know enough about him, so I want him to talk more.
Well, May for May Plays has also so that's 2, Mike. Sir, you need to come on. And Kato had been bullied by like 3 different people. So I would love to have all of them on. That would be incredible. But Patrick, thank you so much for coming on. And with that, friends, we'll catch you next time. Bye.